a movement, a trend, or whatever in the industry now where I think coaching really blew up, as in like, you know, online coaching blew up last year in every single aspect. And I think a lot of people saw that and were like, oh my God, I want to become a coach. I'm just going to start a coaching business for mindset or PT or whatever it may have been, without actually considering what's required of you to build a business, but actually be a coach, be a mentor, have the grit, have the resilience and all of the things. And again, that goes beyond just having a coaching business. That's just having a business in general, right? And I think a big part in that is being a little bit blind potentially to what is required of you, and then feeling like a little bit of a victim when things don't go the way that you potentially think they're going to go. And I think it is really, really important that when you are moving into building any business or just having any goal, that you do have that passion, that genuine drive to actually create impact ultimately, right? Because yes, money's great. I love money. I love talking about money, but it was never the goal. Like I said, when I was earning $200 a week, I was genuinely so fucking happy, so happy. And I remember sitting down with my dad one day, and it was so cute, really. I used to sit down on Fridays and invoice all my clients like by hand. I did that hand? Yeah, literally, like I would write the invoices. Yeah, I know. And this was only a couple of years ago. So it just shows though your lack of knowledge and awareness, and how, like, from a scalability standpoint, like you're handwriting invoices on a Friday, like it doesn't make any sense. But I'm also always like, wow, I fucking did that. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, I did that, and that, it's just amazing hindsight to have. And it's a part of the journey. It's a part of the story. And I remember sitting down with my dad and going, wow, like if I get X amount of clients at $30 a week, I'm going to earn $1,000 a week. And I was just so stoked on that. And I couldn't believe that like I was doing that. It just felt like the most surreal thing in the world. And yeah, I think it's just having that awareness moving in that it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be this seamless journey. But if you're willing to put in the work to invest in yourself, your business, like that's a huge component as well, then you will go the long term. You'll have that longevity in here. But if you move in with entitlement to any business and just expect it to take off, no wonder things feel hard after 3 months into business, right? Because it's like you can't have that level of entitlement. Like the amount of free things I've done, free masterclasses, free programs, PDFs, value on Instagram. I've showed up every single day for 5 years. Like there's so many things where I'm like, it takes time, and it takes building brand and community and all these different things. And it's just really, really important to have that awareness moving in.
Yeah, I love it. And I agree with all of that. And I also think there is nothing more satisfying than like working hard. Literally, like if it just all came easily, it'd be so boring.
100%. I think about that all the time. And it's so true. Like I always think about it like this, right? So I get my car cleaned and sometimes I get in it after it's cleaned and I'm like, oh, I don't care to keep this clean in the sense that I didn't clean it. Right? And there's a difference when you clean your car, you're like, wait, watch the sand when you get in it, or don't chuck that thing in the back seat, because you're more hyper vigilant to like, oh, I don't want to get my car cleaned because I worked hard to get it clean in the first place. So every time I get my car cleaned, I'm always just noting that part of myself that's a little bit more lent back in like, oh, I can just like get it dirty the next day, or it doesn't matter if there's sand on the floor because I didn't physically have to put in the work to make that thing clean and to make that thing beautiful or whatever it may be. So same goes for anything in life. It's like if you get given something, the product feels different, right? The outcome feels different compared to doing that thing yourself. And I think it's just interesting when you do think of very surface level examples like a car as an analogy to be like, yeah, it hits different when you actually have to work for something.
Yeah. No, definitely. I love that analogy. And like you'll listen to interviews with highly hyper successful people and they will all talk. This is what I've noticed. The common factor is they'll all talk about the journey to getting to where they were was actually the best bit, and like the building phase. So because when I first started this podcast, I just kept looking at the numbers and I was like, oh my God. Yeah. And then I was just like, just forget about the numbers. I was like, just enjoy it. And then as soon as I was enjoying it, that's when like, you know, it starts to grow and then, I don't know, it's just so much better when you're just enjoying the journey. Better. I always think about like future me and where I'm going to be at. And then I'm like, I'll look back and be like, this was the best bit, like growing.
It is.
Yeah.
The journey.
Yeah,
the journey. It's what is success without the journey? Like what is the result without the journey? It's so true. It's like if you're not growing and evolving and expanding and learning, what's the point of the outcome? Like the result's never going to feel good. And I feel like in the last year, I've had so many milestones and so many things that I've hit in terms of financial goals and just, goals within business as well, of things that I wanted to do or achieve. And they don't even feel that good, right? It's really interesting where what you think a certain goal will feel like when you get there is not what it feels like when you do it.
I'm actually not surprised that you said that, because a lot of business people say you think once I hit 100K or 500 or 1 million, like then I'll just feel so satisfied and whole. And it's just like, you won't. And that's okay. That's why you got to enjoy the journey. That's why a lot of, Alex Hormozy, love him. That's why he always says like business is a game. Because it's not like you just hit a milestone and you're like, all right, I'm done. Riley Mayer's hit 600K, I'm done.
Yeah, not even. And not even kind of. And that's the funny thing where it's, what would it have been last year? So I was sort of moving from consecutive 35-ish K months, and then I moved to a company and I hit a 75K month. And
wait, what do you mean you moved to a company?
So I was a sole trader and then, transitioned to a company. And then, and not that was the catalyst for having high cash months, but that was kind of where I was at in business. And I remember thinking like, wow, when I hit a 50K month, I'm going to feel like I've made it. When I hit a 70K month, 100K month, whatever it may have been, and I hit a 75 coming off the back of consistent 35. So I skipped a lot of milestones that I thought I would go through. And it's just funny. Like it does not feel like what you think it's going to feel like. Arguably, that was the hardest month of my life.
Wow. Why was that? Because you were kind of like, wait, what?
Well, just processing a lot behind the scenes, and then hitting that goal, you kind of think to yourself, like, I'm going to feel like I've made it, or I'm going to feel like I'm done, or that I've just hit this level of success and I'm untouchable, or whatever the story may be. And I remember it would have been around January last year, my mentor at the time asked me, what's a goal? What's a monetary goal that feels like it's so out of reach for you? And I was thinking about it, and I said to her, 70K month. Like if I did a 70K month, I wouldn't do a 70K month. Like that was my mindset. I was like, if I did, hypothetically, but there's no way that I could or would. And then you do it and you go, what would it be like to hit an 100K month, right? The goalpost moves.
The goalpost moves, yeah.
So it's just very, very interesting. And even now it's funny because I'm like, last year was great, but I'm just getting started. Like that just feels like the tip, of the iceberg, where I'm like, I had an amazing year, but it doesn't even nearly feel complete. Yeah.
And is that like a much better way to look at things? Does that excite you more than just like, I'll be fulfilled when? Like you're aware that that's actually a trap.
Well, that's exactly it. Like it is a trap, because if we settle in, I think a lot has to do with conditioning, right? And even like to take it a bit deeper.
Let's do it.
Let's just do it. It's a lot of conditioning, right? Where it's like once upon a time, I thought earning $100,000 in a year was like, I've made it. If I make 100K in a year, I can live X life. I can have X house. I can go on X amount of holidays. Like that's the goal for me. I was like, wow, like if I could do that, I'm good. And then you do that, and then you do 200, and then you cross 300, and then you cross 400, and then it keeps going, and you go, oh, I could earn a lot of fucking money here. And it's not even about the money. And I think that's a really important thing to remember, where it's like, I have normalized earning a lot of money. I've normalized people in my world earning a lot of money. And I think it's such an important conversation to have and to normalize, because based on conditioning, a lot of the time we don't give ourselves permission to desire having money, to desire grinding, to desire building a business. It's like that permission slip gets to exist and you get to want to earn money. And I think that's a really, really cool thing to anchor into. But it's never done. And when you look at your conditioning around money and what you think is accessible to you, it's just really interesting that once you break that glass ceiling, the limit doesn't exist. Right? Like 100K that I thought would be the most profound thing to ever hit in my life, that doesn't even touch the surface now. And not in terms of like a greed thing, but in terms of what's accessible to me. There's no cap on money in the world. There's no cap on what you can earn. And the minute you just realize that, you've got evidence of that, you can anchor into that. I'm like, even $1 million, that's amazing money, but it's not the limit. It's like anything is possible. And I think realizing that, trusting that, knowing that, it changes your perspective on what is success.